let's be honest, sometimes we just don't feel like it. We don't feel like praying, don't feel like working, don't feel like facing what's in front of us. But I believe God's word for you today is simple. Just show up and try a little bit, because sometimes that's all it takes for heaven to move. When I was a preteen, I got a phone call from a grown woman. She asked, "Can you help me find a job?" And instead of laughing or saying I was too young, I actually tried. I started calling places on her behalf. Now imagine this. I was a kid calling businesses, throwing out jokes, using all the charisma I had like I was selling ice in Antarctica. And somehow it worked. I got her an interview. No resume, no form, no in-person visit, just a kid on the phone. So I called her with the good news. I said, "I got you an interview. All you have to do is show up and do your best." She paused and then said no. I thought maybe she found a better job. She didn't. She was just afraid, full of fear. Then she told me to go to the interview, and I said, "What did you expect? To just walk in, no interview, no training, and start typing on a computer?" I tried again. I said, "Look, just show up and try a little bit." She said no. Getting frustrated, I said, "All right, just show up again." No. I said, "At least read Exodus 14:14. She said no. That was the last straw. I told her she was wasting my time, hung up, and never heard from her again. And to this day, I don't know what happened to her, but I know this: God gave her a chance. All she had to do was say yes. The reluctant prophet who still showed up. Jonah didn't want to go to Nineveh. He tried running, got swallowed by a giant fish, and washed up smelling like ocean regret. But eventually he said, "Fine, I'll show up." And you know what he said to the people? Something simple: "God." And the people were like, "Oh no, we have to change everything." They repented, they fasted, they wept, and God spared them. Jonah barely tried, and it still worked. Why? Because God does the heavy lifting. All they had to do was be still. The Israelites were trapped between Pharaoh's army and the Red Sea. No escape, no plan. And God said, "The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." They didn't part the sea. They didn't fight with swords. They just had to stand there and trust. Faith activates grace. You may be thinking, "But I'm not a preacher. I'm not ready. I'm too broken." But listen, where there is faith, grace follows. When you move in faith, even a little, God releases miracles. You check your pockets and they're empty, but after a prayer, suddenly there's money there. You walk by someone hungry on the street and God puts a sandwich in your hand. I'm begging you, just show up, try a little bit. God will do the rest. One time I was in Walmart, unsure what to say to a stranger. I stood there just staring. They looked at me like, "What's going on?" And eventually I just started singing. Jesus is coming again, coming again, coming again, coming. I gave them directions to my church. I gave them directions to the next week. I saw them sitting in the pews. All I did was show up and try a little bit. God did the rest. God did the rest. God is not asking you to move mountains. He'll do that. He's just asking you to move your feet. Whether it's a phone call you don't want to make, a person you're afraid to forgive, a step toward healing, or a whisper of faith in the dark, do it. Try. Because when you try a little, God multiplies it a lot. Father, thank you for being strong when we are weak. Thank you that you do not require perfection, just participation. Remind us that all you need is our yes. Even if it's small, we will show up, we will try. Because you are the God who parts seas, softens hearts, and saves cities with just a few words in Jesus' name.